In a higher self hypnosis session today, my client wanted me to ask her higher self if there is only one truth. And you're never going to believe the can of worms that got opened when we asked that question. My name is Tracy, and I do a type of hypnosis where I speak to my clients' higher selves after we look at a past life and after we look at what they do in between lives. And to get right into this story, I'm going to read the notes off my screen so you can see how it started and where it went. The question was, is there one truth? That's something my client really wanted to know. Her higher self responded and said, she doesn't like that one truth, the thought that there is one truth, and she doesn't like the thought that there are many truths. So she's put herself in a hard place. I then asked, will this come along with her learning in the next 2 to 3 years? Because her higher self had just told her that in the next 2 to 3 years, there were certain things she was going to be learning. Her higher self said, we will see. I believe it will. She does have a problem with submission and surrender. I then asked her higher self, is it because of her desire to be in control? Her higher self said, her desire to be in control comes from her resentment at Creator for being created. I then said, isn't she Creator though? And her higher self said, she doesn't believe it yet. I said, what will it take for her to believe that? And her higher self said, she kind of thrives in the separation. I then asked her higher self, isn't that where pain and suffering comes in though, from living in the illusion that there is such a thing as separation? Her higher self said, yes, she kind of thrives in suffering. And another question my client wanted me to ask, I inserted here and said, does she have an addiction to drama? And her higher self said, yes, she's fascinated by her own suffering. I said, is she learning from it? And her higher self said, yes, she's learned a lot from it. I then asked, what would it take for her to believe that she can learn her lessons through joy and no longer have to learn them through pain and suffering? Her higher self said, she likes the idea that she is a gladiator, so she might hold on to that one for a bit longer. And because my client is from a different culture, I asked, is it partly cultural? And her higher self said, a little tiny sliver of that is cultural. A majority of it is her rebellion against being created by Creator. So it's a little loop she's kind of in, but she still does get enjoyment out of it. And maybe it's not something talked about very much, but I know that I have felt this way in the past, and I know that her and I can't be the only ones that have ever thought or had the feeling of resenting Creator for having been created. But not realizing that you are Creator is one reason we experience suffering.